Stephen, on your website, you're telling us that you were homeless.
Yep.
What was it that caused you to lose so much hope?
There wasn't anything that caused me to lose hope. I mean, I never lost hope. What caused me to have the challenges was the frustration involved in trying to maintain what I had. I think depression was not the problem. Getting divorced was the problem.
But it led to depression.
Yeah, it led to depression because everything I was trying to do didn't seem good enough. You know, I mean, I was trying to do good because I came from a very poor family, and I was trying to be the best in my family, you know, as far as financially goes and so on and so forth. And so I worked really, really hard all my life. And it seemed like no matter what I did, something would block my way or cause me to fail, or something would happen. And so it was just frustration. And then one thing led after another. You know, getting divorced, trying to be the best husband I could, trying to be the best dad I could, trying to be the best hairdresser I could, trying to be everything I possibly could be. And the divorce caused me to realize that none of that stuff I believed in being good had any value whatsoever. And so I didn't really give up. I just sort of stopped. And once I stopped, you know, I lost all my support system because my friends didn't hang out with me anymore because I wasn't making all that kind of money. Plus the fact I couldn't see my kids, you know, so it just wasn't worthwhile. In my mind, I was doing the best I knew how to do, what I thought was right, because I was believing what society said was these things. I didn't have a father to grow up with, and my mother was single, and she was never around, so my models or my role models were non-existent except for what I saw on TV. And what I saw on TV was very successful, self-made people. You know, that was the American dream, the goal, the idea. When you get everything taken away to your core, that is your whole reason for getting up in the morning and doing what you're doing, is taken away from you, or you find out it's falsehood, then yeah, you sit back and start thinking about it. And when I really started looking at it around, I didn't see anything but falsehood everywhere I went. I saw people saying that, well, yeah, I'm your friend and all that kind of stuff, and, you know, we'll stick with you and everything, but the reality of the situation is the friends disappeared when things got really rough. So, you know, I guess I didn't have any friends. And the most interesting thing was when I got divorced, rather than my family, my mother and her husband siding with me, they sided with my ex-wife and left me sitting on the curb. So I couldn't even go home and cry to mommy or daddy, or I had nobody to go to. So the only place I had to do was go within.
What do you feel about that? Do you feel like it's maybe they just don't want to hear sadness like that because they want their lives are going well? And
well, as far as your friends go, that might be true, but that's not what caused my depression. My depression caused the rejection of my family. And at the worst time of my life, my family, brothers and sisters, and people like that should have been. I should have been able to draw support on. Weren't there.
They should have been holding you up.
Right.
And so you felt all alone.
Right.
At that time. I mean, you felt like you had no one to even talk to, that no one even wanted to listen. Were you working during this time, Stephen?
No. The part of the divorce decree was I had to pay $5,000 a month alimony and child support, and had to give up half of my business at the time. Well, I didn't make that kind of money. So they ended up taking the business and left me on the streets with the bills.
Yeah, so that left you on the streets with the bills and nowhere to go.
Yeah.
Nowhere to go.
I had a place to go. I lived in my Volkswagen van.
And you lived on the. How long were you living like that, Stephen?
About 2 years.
2 years. Did you feel like giving up completely, or what was it that finally got you having hope again?
Well, I didn't give up completely. I just came to the end of what I knew how to do. I kind of just beat my head up against the wall so many times that what I was doing was not working. And what I did was basically I had step by step. I think it's kind of hard to explain, but basically what had happened was somebody felt sorry for me one day and actually gave me a plate of food because I wasn't eating, and they gave me a plate of food, and that made me think that actually somebody cared about me. I didn't know who they were. It was just a stranger who showed up in my Volkswagen van one day. And that was the thing about the plate of food, was it had a little thing on there that said, "Smile, God loves you," a little card on top of the plate of food. And for some reason or other, that just made me think that there was actually hope. I didn't know what that hope was, but just the act of giving me a little bit of food lifted my spirits enough to where just start trying again, and then one thing led to another. I mean, it was a long process. It was probably a 5-year process of getting over my depression, getting over the hurt and the frustration, the pain. I think the biggest problem was I didn't understand what I was doing wrong. And I didn't have anybody to tell me, well, if you try this, if you do that, if you talk to these people here. There wasn't anybody out there giving me any guidance. Everybody could tell me what I was doing wrong, but nobody could tell me what to do right, or how to do it, or encourage me to do it, or when you're on the downhill slide of life, people don't want to be around you. It could have been shortened by a whole lot if somebody had just looked at me and saw that I was...
Or looked at you with compassion in their eyes.
Yeah, and at least talk to me and let me know that things are going to be all right. But and a part of it was my fault too, because I was so hurt. I just didn't want to talk to anybody. I just wanted to get away from everybody, because everybody I've ever been around had lied to me. Kind of innocent. I mean, if you say you're my friend, or if you say you're my family, I expect that there's, maybe I'm a little naive, but I expect there's some sort of obligation in that statement. And my idea of family is that the family sticks together no matter what, through the hard times as well as the good times.
And saying what you just said, you were hurting yourself so bad that you were, you didn't feel much like talking. And if people,
well, I didn't feel like talking. I wanted to. I got tired of talking about my problems. I wanted to show me how to get out of it.
You needed people to come, grab you, pull you in, and where you were weak, you needed them to be your strength.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't always happen in this life, does it, Stephen?
No, on a very rare occasion.
You've learned something from this, though, now, haven't you?
Right, which is why I started Street Slave, because the biggest thing is people really don't know what to do. They think it's a big, involved thing. And really all you got to do is just listen. And you can hear, if you listen to somebody that's homeless, or you listen to somebody that's really hurting, and you can hear what they actually need. Like, I never asked anybody to take me off the streets. I never asked anybody to give me money. I never asked anybody, those kind of things. What I was asking for is understanding. What is wrong with my thinking? What is wrong? What am I doing wrong? Because I didn't, like I said, everything I learned on my own. And what I learned on my own evidently wasn't right at that time. It wasn't until years later that I learned that, not necessarily all of it was my fault. Some of it was, the other parties involved in it, their weaknesses and their fears and their confusion about what to do. Because it's an unusual thing. It's not talked about in schools. They always talk about failure as being a personal problem rather than, maybe a result of economics, result of laws or divorces or that kind of things.
Stephen, what was it that, or do you even know, what got you going again?
Well, God got me going again. I mean, I prayed out, because I was searching everybody else and nobody was giving me answers, and I always had a deep faith in God. I just didn't have any knowledge. I knew there's God, but I didn't know there was, how actively you would get involved in your life, or I didn't know anything about praying, or I didn't know anything about any of that kind of stuff. And somebody had given me a Bible, and it was my last straw. I tried everything else, so I thought, why not try the Bible? I mean, it can't hurt. I'm not in any better position than, for it. Well, the strangest thing happened was after I got the Bible, I tried to read it, and I couldn't read it. It didn't make sense to me. I didn't see how it applied to my life. So I used it for a pillow, just a real innocent little prayer. I used it for a pillow in my van. I didn't have any pillows, and slept on it. And I said, Lord, I don't understand, what's in this Bible, but maybe if I sleep on it, I'll gain the knowledge. Well, about 6 months later, things started happening. Somebody I got enough money to put a motor in my Volkswagen van, which is what it didn't have a motor, and I was sleeping in it. And that gave me the ability to go look for a job, because by that time I had lost my salon. Obviously, you're not going to go to your hairdresser when it's super depressed, and so all my customers disappeared. And I lost my salon and my business, and one thing led to another. I ended up in a little church up in Temecula, California, at a great Bible church. They just taught the Bible. And that was one of the things I prayed was, I don't understand the Bible. Well, this pastor happened to be a very good Bible teacher. And make a long story short, what I had found out was that, I was relying solely on my own abilities and my own strength, and I was relying on what other people said I should do, and instead of relying on what I knew to do. Now that I think about it, if I had looked at that marriage that caused me so much problem, I would have realized I was getting married for the wrong reason. That was not the right person to be married to. So that's the things I learned. That was the steps, and after that, it just became, probably a 20-year process of learning and searching and seeking and finding out the truth, and being honest with myself.
When you were homeless, Stephen, did you feel like you were never going to get out of that situation? Was there any point in time when you felt like, did you begin to hate being homeless? Or did you feel like you were never going to get out of this situation?
Yeah, I knew I was never going to get out of this situation unless somebody did something to upset the path that I was going on. Because the depression was getting worse and worse and worse. It wasn't getting better and better and better. I was withdrawing more and more, and wanted to have less and less to do with human beings as a general rule. If there had been somebody say something to me, or like the food thing, I probably would not have been alive today, because I was at the point of suicide. I figured death has got to be a lot better than what I was going through. And it's really strange at that point. It's like, there is nothing in this world worthwhile, from my perspective. Like I said, I didn't have a family. I was poor now, and my dream was to be successful. Back to right where I started from. Nothing I did made any difference. No matter how hard I tried, it still ended up with a negative result. I didn't have my kids anymore. That was one of the things, the only reason I was working so hard for was to survive and take care of my kids the best way I could. I didn't have my parents anymore, or my family support anymore, so I didn't see any value in it. And obviously, I was never going to have any relationships with anybody, because I couldn't do the things that every person did. I couldn't go out to dinner. I didn't have clothes. I didn't have, there was nothing that I could do from what I saw, nothing I could do to ever get started again.
And it's amazing that you have somehow, and maybe through God, not maybe through God, God grabbed a hold of you, Stephen, and he became your only hope. And through His Word, reading His Bible, that gave you hope, because maybe other people here passed you by, and for you in particular, God gave you hope, and He gave you strength, and when little things started coming your way, that started to lift you up slowly, and that's really neat that happened to you, and it was your faith that may be the only thing that picked you up enough to be able to get off the street.
What I read in the Bible was the only thing that's like, it was the last straw. if the Bible, and remember that is the falsehood is what I was really causing my depression. The things I believed were not true. And the Bible was the last thing I read, and I thought, well, if the Bible's not true, then there is no hope. Because there certainly wasn't any hope in the world. That was really the thing, that just the possibility that actually that God loved me, wasn't mad at me, or whatever the sickness I was going through at the time. And really it was the Bible that gave me hope.
I guess at that point in time when you were that low down, the only hope you had found in the love was God's love at that time, because like you said, you had no support system whatsoever, and so thank goodness God lifted you up to a point where you worked your way out of this. But once again, even if a person can get to that point, it's not easy to get out of that bondage. Like the bondage you were talking about, you do become a slave to it.
Yeah, it was, the interesting thing that people say is, like, you've heard that old proverb about give a man a fish and he eats for a day, and teach a man a fish and he eats forever. Well, to me that's rather arrogant, because I had the knowledge of how to work, how to make money, how to do all those things we're supposed to do for that kind of stuff. Like I said, a lot of people would tell me what I'm doing wrong, and they would maybe tell me how to do it right, but the problem is, you can teach me to fish, but where's the lake? Or I don't have a fishing pole, or I don't know how to fish for that particular kind of fish. I mean, it's really an environmental thing. And that was probably even more frustrating, because here I was, had plenty of talent, plenty of knowledge, plenty of experience, but what I didn't have was opportunity. So even when I wanted to get off the street, I couldn't, because at that time I didn't have any clothes. I couldn't apply for a job. I didn't have any. Hell, I didn't even have a driver's license. I mean, I gave up. I just got rid of everything. So there's no way you could call me. There's no way I could apply for a job. There's no way I could get a phone number to a prospective employer. I just couldn't participate in the way things were done normally in society. And I think that was probably the hardest hump to get over, was just the start. How do I get started?
In the meantime, how do you get started? Plus, you were still suffering from depression. So,
the depression stayed. This depression stays with me. It's always there. It's a scar. It's like it's a stigma as I'm divorced. That will always be there. What I have to learn is how to deal with the depression, how to stay grounded in what's reality, what's not. And for me, the depression it's just like that little voice telling your head that, it's going to get worse and worse, it's never going to get better, blah, 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 blah. Well, if it hadn't been for the Bible, I probably would have believed that. But I was reading the Bible at that time, and so the Bible talks a lot about depression, how to get over it, and how to get through it, and how to, which probably getting through it's probably more important than getting over it, because most people do get depressed. But what makes a difference is how you react into depression. And so whenever I was feeling like it wasn't worthwhile, what I would go do is go do something for somebody else. I'd go talk to somebody, or I'd go help somebody, or I'd go read the Bible. And I wouldn't believe that inner voice that caused that depression. And I wouldn't believe that I'm worthless. I wouldn't believe that I'm a lousy husband. I wouldn't believe that I'm a lousy businessman. I wouldn't, I knew better. I knew in my heart that I was better than all that. But it was reading the sections of the Bible that really gave me hope on it.
That's good for you, Stephen. Some people that are on the street and homeless, they don't end up that lucky where they can get an understanding of the Bible and actually believe in it. And
I didn't necessarily believe in it, though. I tested it.
Okay.
Like I said, I didn't know. and I thought, well, this is the last thing I'm going to do what the Bible says to do. And it wasn't until a couple of years of doing it, practicing, and so on and so forth, that I actually truly believed that the Bible was 100% true. And I started reading all the promises in the Bible about how Jesus will take care of you if you don't worry and all this kind of stuff. And then I became convinced. But the difference is I didn't have any other choice. I had to trust it because I had no other options, which is probably the best thing that happened to me. Because my family did go away and they did not support me, they did not give me comfort, all the things that I expected them to do, I had to rely strictly on the Bible and God. It may have been the best thing that ever happened to me, at least as far as I'm concerned today it was. Because now I no longer rely on human beings. I don't get depressed because, you say you're my friend and you're not. Or I don't get upset because I'm looking for satisfaction, not from humans anymore. I'm looking for satisfaction from God.
That's right, Stephen. But while you're here on this earth, you still desire or need, I think, deep down in your heart, approval or for other human beings to show they care and love you and support you.
Not as much, though. It's not my whole life anymore. It was when I was a kid trying to get approval. Mm-hmm. But as I become older and older and older, I realized that I'm not going to get approval from everybody.
No, you're not.
But see, I don't expect it. Whereas before, I had this false belief system that if I did this and this and this, then the end result would be this, and that's just not reality. So I can't say that I'm really looking for approval anymore. I'm looking for eternity, but I'm not looking for anything in this life because I know it's not important. I've learned to do without. I've learned to, even though I don't have a house, I've learned to enjoy the day. I learned to, even though I don't have a new car, I've learned, to enjoy whatever I had. And I think that probably made the biggest difference on my depression. I was thankful for whatever I had, rather than focusing on what I didn't have. And it's really just a mind shift.
So you're focusing more now on eternal perspective of things rather than earthly perspective.
Right.
They've become more important to you now that you've been at rock bottom, and through that you have learned what is important and what is not. And that's a wonderful thing, Stephen.
Well, one of the funny things is when you're at rock bottom, everything looks up.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have that fear anymore of failure because, as far as the world's eyes is concerned, I failed. It's reality as far as the world's concerned. So everything to me it's like I'm not really concerned about what you think. I'm concerned about what God thinks. I'm constantly looking up. So anything from that point, from being destitute, homeless, depressed, mentally ill, whatever, anything beyond that normal circumstance to me was a bonus.
So you realize that you're not a failure to God.
I realize I'm not a failure to anybody because very few people can go arrive the depths of depression, despair, and life experiences, and continue to have a hopeful attitude. I mean, most people give up and do drugs, or give up and become alcoholics, or give up, become violent, or become criminals, or become a lot of, there's a lot of worse things that could have happened.
And it could have happened to you.
And it could have happened to me, very simply. And yeah, absolutely sure it would have happened if God hadn't intervened.
Mm-hmm. What got you off the street? What was the first little, through God, what was the first helpful? Did somebody give you a home? What got you off the street, Stephen? Was it up at the shelter? But you were on the street. You had no clothes. That's what I'm trying to get at. What was the first step that before you couldn't get a job with the clothes you were wearing?
Right.
Did someone give you clothes?
No.
Did someone take you in their home?
No.
Well,
Luckily,
tell us about it.
I had been during the Vietnam War. I was in the Army, so I had opportunity to have the VA pay for me to go to school. So that's what I did. Is I went to school, but in the meantime, what I did was when I first went looking for a job, I didn't have anything on but a pair of shorts and a t-shirt. Obviously not job material. And so I stole some clothes off the clothesline. And I stole the clothes off the clothesline. I walked down to a local AM, PM, or mini mart type place and applied for a job there, and they hired me. They hired me on the spot, and that's really the step-by-step progression that got me back into not begging or that kind of stuff. I actually started working, and then what I got is I got a plan. You know, I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew what I was going to do was going to be better than what I'm doing now. And at that time, and. Just one thing led into another. I ended up working at NASA, believe it or not, after 10 years of struggle. I went from being homeless and no education to being in charge of the International Space Station, computer network security. And that'd probably be about a 2-month story of me tell you how step by step how it went.
You're one of the lucky ones, Stephen.
I think I am very lucky. I'm very blessed.
But I want to go back for a moment to when you got that job at the grocery store. As you said, you had shorts on. It's not as simple as it sounds. Where did you get your shower? Where did you get cleaned up at? Did you walk in there stinky and smelly?
No, fortunately, where I lived at, they had external showers. I lived in San Diego, and if you went to the beach, they had showers. At that time, if I couldn't take a shower at the beach, the marinas have boat docks, and the boat docks had showers. So that's how I kept clean every day. Mm-hmm. I didn't have that problem not being able to stay clean. My clothes had a hard time, but I used to wash my clothes.
How did you wash your clothes?
Walk it in the ocean.
Okay. Good old salt water.
Good old salt water. And then you turn around and rinse them. And, it's the only clothes you got, so they stay dry. Well, you just, by hanging out and walking down the street, they're dry.
Well, where were you sleeping?
Well, I slept in my Volkswagen bus most of the time.
Mm-hmm. You were still able to keep that for...
Yeah,
you hadn't lost that.
Well, nobody wanted it. It didn't have a motor in it.
Okay, so it was not running.
It was not running.
To help you get a job. You were doing that on foot.
I used to push it because what would happen, you could park your car for 3 days before they'd tow it off. And so I used to push it about every 3 days down the next block of the street where it was at to keep it from getting towed off.
How were you eating?
At that time, 7-Eleven used to have 2 hot dogs for 99 cents. And to be honest with you, I don't remember how I actually ate. I mean, I ate it out of the trash cans and that kind of stuff. McDonald's, and that sounds really gross, but when these
that's what you do when you're hungry.
Yeah, but when these fast food restaurants close at night, they throw out all their food. So if you get there at just the right time, it's actually a warm meal.
Stephen, you never stole from anybody or...
Just the clothesline.
Just the clothesline?
Just clothes, yeah.
Okay.
And no, I wouldn't steal. I mean...
Purse snatcher or you didn't get to that point.
No, well, I would...
how about, did you ever beg on the corner? Did you ever have a sign? Didn't get to that point. So you got...
Well, I didn't want to beg. I wanted to work. I just
wanted to work.
First off, I had to get over the depression so I could work. That was probably the biggest hurdle, was I had to get to the point where, I didn't want to die. And then obviously if you get to the point where you're not going to die, you got to live. And I'm very practical, and then I realized that, I'm not a victim. So I just needed a job.
And so you weren't particular at that time what job you had, just a job, minimum wage.
I didn't care. I didn't care.
That was fine for you.
Yeah.
And you went in and you took this job, and things didn't just go easy for you right away.
No.
You still live after you started working. You were still living in the Volkswagen bus,
yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah. But I didn't let anybody know I was living in the Volkswagen bus.
No. Because people have a tendency not to trust people that don't live a normal life.
So if my boss really knew I lived in a Volkswagen bus, he probably would have, maybe, I don't know. I just didn't bother to share with him what was going on. And I didn't share with anybody what was going on,
Sure.
including my family.
Sure.
Because at that point I figured, well, hell, if the divorce they're not going to help me, they're certainly not going to help me now. So I just kept to myself on that kind of stuff.
Well, Stephen, you didn't go to any of the shelters or any of those type services, I guess, too much.
They didn't have shelters where I lived at.
Okay.
And I probably wouldn't have. More than likely. If I remember back at the time, I would not have went into a shelter. For me, going into a shelter would be like I'd be resigning myself to that's the end result of my life. I've never seen anybody come out of a shelter successfully. I'd seen people before I ever became homeless. I'd seen homeless people, and I didn't want to be a homeless person. I just found myself in that position.
Stephen, along the way then, as you started working at the store, did you maybe you started meeting more people? I guess what I'm trying to say is you must have started meeting people that gave you a little bit of a hand or some kind of encouragement or something, because it wouldn't be that easy to pull yourself out on minimum wage, living out of your Volkswagen van, to get, for example, all of a sudden an apartment. So
yeah, I didn't go.
Did you finally find maybe a few people that had compassion for you and helped you out, let you stay at their place? Or
Well, when I went to school, I ended up, an old neighbor of mine let me live in their garage. And that's where I lived for 10 months while I went to school. Because, yeah, I couldn't afford an apartment. I mean, I was, I think, $4.25 an hour was minimum wage.
at that time.
Apartments were $200 or $300 a week, and I was trying to work and go to school too. So, yeah, if somebody hadn't done something like that, given me an opportunity,
You might be dead now.
I might be dead, no matter how hard I tried. It was really interesting is when somebody actually does, they say, I mean, it's great for people to say that, yeah, you know what, I hope we're the best for you, but that doesn't really make any difference. What makes the difference is somebody says, look, I wish the best for you, and I'm going to do this little bitty thing for you. I'm not going to take you into my house because of whatever, but I'll let you sleep in my garage. At least you have a sense of permanence, and you won't have to push your Volkswagen bus down the road.
Or in your backyard, something. Something.
And again, it's just the idea that somebody cared enough to at least give me the least little bit of help, encouraged me to go the next step, the next step, the next step.
So some of your closer so-called friends maybe didn't help you. And so in your life started coming strangers, so to speak, that reached out to you in small ways. Some ways were small and others maybe in larger ways, and just showed they cared and offered you up a little something, a little hope, a little human hope through God, maybe, and not maybe.
Well,
Probably.
yeah, but I mean, it wasn't like it was a big religious thing going on. It was just people were being nice to me enough to give me hope. That combination with what I was studying in the Bible is what gave me hope, but people were actually doing little things. Now, people were helping me were not necessarily Christians. People were helping me didn't believe in God. People were helping me were just, for some reason or other, just decided that I was worthy of being helped. The amazing thing is the Christians I talked to did not help at all, because mostly all they ever wanted to do was pray for me. And at that time,
you needed maybe
I needed a hamburger.
Prayers into action.
And a hamburger.
And a hamburger.
And I needed not to be treated different.
Yeah.
That was the only thing I needed. So I don't think after that initial Bible experience, I had a lot of direction again. I mean, I didn't know what it was, but I had belief that I had hope. And hope was enough to propel me into moving onward, moving upward, or trying to do whatever I could to get out of it.
And Stephen, as you, it takes short of a miracle, it takes a long time to once you're down to that point where you've lost everything, even hope, and it takes a long time for you to get going again. Employment, a place to stay. In other words, where you're not in bondage to someone else, where you're self-sufficient. And that's not something that, for a basic person with basic education these days, that's not easy to overcome. And this is not something that happened overnight. You didn't just leave homelessness and all of a sudden now you've got your own place.
No, it
takes a long time.
It took about 4 years for me to get self-sufficiency again. I mean, it took me from the time I got first divorced to getting my first apartment, about 4.5 years.
And along the way, there's
because
a lot
I had
of
bad credit. Remember, I had lost the divorce had destroyed my credit, and that's the first thing apartment building people look at is, your credit rating.
And you're just now, so it's 4 years later. You could have easily, somewhere along that 4-year battle to pull yourself up, you could have easily, another event could have happened, another life event that could have devastated you and sent you right back.
Yeah.
Luckily, it did not take you there, but you realize right now that, and you're pulling yourself up, but you realize right now that it could happen again.
It could happen tomorrow.
It could happen tomorrow. And now you're working, and you've become without getting fancy terms, you're a computer whiz, and you are self-taught, self-trained. You are trying to, because you also know that you can't sometimes depend on these companies.
Well, I've learned not to depend on anybody. The difference is, I'm like I was when I was successful before. The difference was I was depending on me. Now I depend strictly on God. I don't.
Amazing.
And it's a huge distinction in words. I'm very strong now, but only because I know who God is. I don't depend on my friends. I still don't depend on my family. The difference is my expectations are different. I don't have to prove that I'm a worthy person because I drive a Mercedes.
You've found that you're a worthy person if you're riding to work on a bicycle.
I'm a worthy person if I'm walking. I'm a worthy person whether I have a job. And that's the difference, because my self-worth is not based on my external things. My self-worth is based on the knowledge I have, life experiences that, with God, everything's possible. And I know that sounds trite to a lot of people that have never been down what I'm talking about, but it's not trite by any means at all. And it's truth.
Well, probably people that have not been down to that dark night aren't going to understand, and never will unless and until they walk a mile in your shoes, and that's what.
And I pray that never happens to anybody, because to sit there with a gun in your lap, looking at your watch, thinking you can make it one more minute, watching the second hand going around before you pull the trigger. I can make it one more minute. I can make it 5 more seconds. I don't want anybody to ever have to experience that.
So, Stephen, rather than you didn't turn to drug or alcohols, and you will admit that you could have, but you did hold a gun to your head, and
which is worse.
I don't know. That's pretty.
One's quicker than the other is the only thing difference.
You were in despair, that's for sure, and somehow, some way, you are no longer on the streets, and faith in God, a little help from some people that you didn't even expect to get help from. And you're not there yet.
The help came from places I never expected. I wasn't, and to be honest with you, I wasn't looking for help.
No.
It just came. It wasn't something I had to go searching for. I knew what I wanted to do, and And I wanted to get over the depression. I wanted to get that kind of stuff. God just sort of made events happen that allowed that to happen.
Well, Stephen, what's your biggest fear? You don't want to go back into that bondage of living on the street again, but you know that depression, some life event.
I don't have the fear of that anymore, of ever being homeless again. Although I could be, but I don't fear it. It's not unfamiliar territory for me. I have more of a fear of being incredibly successful or having huge amounts of money, because what will happen is I will turn around and not be wise about my friends, or I'll have the same false expectations. And plus, when you're really rich, or successful, the only thing you have to look forward to is failure. Well, I'm not afraid of failure. I've been there, but it's a weird dichotomy.
A lot of times, when you're rich and successful, you have lots of friends.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you can buy friendship.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's when you're down and out you find who the real sheep from the goats, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, Stephen, when you see a homeless person now, and you yourself, you don't have a lot yet that you can help them with, but as far as monetary goes, but you can, and how do you look at a homeless person? You look at them a little bit differently than you might have 15 years ago when you were successful and everything was going well for you. Tell us a little bit how you look at a homeless person.
Well, I look at a homeless person, I relate to them. I think what it is I don't care what they look like. I don't care what they look like on the outside. I can see what's going on inside their heart. Because I know none of the homeless people ever decided when they were little bitty babies, when I grow up, I want to be an alcoholic, smelly dirtbag on the street. That wasn't a choice. Most of it made choices based on the opportunities that were given to them. And it's a painful thing. And some of them, you can't blame a guy that has nothing to look forward to, gosh, maybe a beer or getting drunk just to ease the pain of suffering. It's better than suicide, I suppose, or becoming angry or a criminal or whatever, But I look at them as I guess I want to protect them, because I understand what they're going through. And they need some coaching like I needed. They need some direction. They need some discipline, honestly, discipline. Either in their discipline in their thinking or their discipline in their social skills. But I'm looking at their heart. I look at them like Jesus looks at them. I don't care about the external part. I think that's probably the only difference. I know for a fact that there's a way out of it. I know for a fact that they don't have to be that way. But they don't know that.
I've heard some people say too, and I've heard a lot of people say, and I'm sure you have too, that, oh, well, they don't want to take some of the jobs that might be available to them, minimum wage. They don't want those jobs. Do you think that's true?
No, I don't think that's true. Case in point, if I wanted, I want to go work at that gas station right there, and I don't know what I would do. Maybe sweep the parking lot. They won't hire me. Because remember, it's like I'm homeless. Like they're afraid if I run the cash register, I might steal from them.
True.
Or I may not be able to get to work on time, or I'm not dependable. Obviously, I'm not dependable. Look at the lifestyle I'm living. You must have done something wrong.
True. A job maybe at a gas station, minimum wage, is not going to pay your rent.
Well, it's not going to pay.
You're still going to be living on the street.
It's not going to solve any problem. It's like giving a bottle of whiskey to an alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it will make me better while I got the bottle, or make me feel happy while I got the bottle, but it's not going to solve the root cause of the problem. it's more like it's treating the symptom rather than looking for the cure. So yeah, I could work at that. Maybe that gas station would hire me, but I wouldn't be there very long because it wouldn't provide what I need to do. I mean, most of these people need medical help. I needed medical help. I needed psychological counseling while I was in depression. I couldn't get it at $4 an hour. Now,
no, you couldn't.
Now the services may have been available, economically. I mean, most of these do have social services, but I didn't know about them. I didn't know where they were at, and most people don't. I'm sure I can guarantee you those people at the gas station don't know a free clinic for depression. And
most people don't.
And they have people have a stigma. It's like, oh my God, this guy he might be psychotic. So you're afraid to talk about the things that you'd normally talk about, to even ask for help, because you don't know who to ask it from. And that's what I was doing. I was asking for support and help from the wrong people, but I didn't know any place else. I didn't know anything else to do.
So, Stephen, what do you feel like there's any hope for? We've got thousands and thousands and thousands of homeless right here in Houston, Texas alone, and
there's going to be a lot more too.
I see it. Jobs are cutting, medicals going by the wayside. Companies are dropping medical. People can't get. I think there's going to be a lot more homeless, and I don't know how we're going to be able to put an end to homelessness, but
well, you don't manage homelessness. The problem with homelessness, no matter where you start at, whether in my case is being raised by a single mother, not having education, or not having, being raised with some discipline, or not being challenged, or not being, that's what that is a lack of support system. I didn't have to go homeless if somebody would have intervened before that stage. If I could have if I had gotten counseling during my divorce, if I could have got counseling with a better attorney, I wouldn't have lost my business. If I could have got, all these things could have interjected the path. They may not even had to get divorced if we'd had counseling. I was willing to get counsel. Now, granted, I may have been a tough nut to counsel, because I was full of pride, but I was willing to do it. I don't necessarily know what to do right, but I can certainly tell you what not to do.
Okay, go ahead and tell us again.
Well, I can tell you what not to have happen in your life. I can't tell you how to keep from losing your job, but I can tell you how to keep from being depressed.
How can you keep from being depressed, Stephen?
Well, if you're not a Christian, the best way is just to focus on every day something good.
Okay.
Whether it's blue sky or the great weather, or the fact that you didn't get run over last night, or it's really that simple. Just look for things that are pleasing to look at, maybe flowers. And people laugh at me when I tell you that, when I say that, but it's really that simple. Every day you look for something good. Can't see it in yourself or in your circumstances, you look at something good for somebody else. I think that's what I think there's an expression called "there but the grace of God go I," where the guy was talking about, basically looking how fortunate I was because, I got shoes and this other guy didn't have feet. It's really silly at first when you think about it. But it's really that simple.
That's pretty neat, Stephen, and let's just hope that maybe those words right there will encourage someone to, in some way. What is it that you want to try to do yourself through Street Slave, and you want to bring awareness to everybody that you can that there is more to being homeless than just being a loser.
Right.
And God, wouldn't that be something if we could just bring that to people's awareness?
I think if I could just, like I said, if one person just helps one person, if one person just lifts up one person, if one person just feeds one person, if one person just clothes one person, then there won't be any people that are needy. Now, there will always be people who have problems, but they won't be as extreme as homelessness is. I don't think it takes a big, massive effort. I think it takes an individual effort. You yourself, all you have to do is smile at somebody one day, and you may have stopped them from pulling the trigger on the gun, like happened to me. It wasn't a major thing that caused the turnaround. It was a simple thing, a simple act of kindness that shifted everything. And I think that's really what the issue is. Now, there's some practical challenges. There's all that other kind of stuff. But the practical challenges are not nearly as devastating as the emotional challenges, the feeling of hopelessness. Because if you have hope, anything's possible.
There you go. If you have hope, anything is possible.
And hope is the easiest thing we can give to each other.
Isn't that the truth? Thank you, Stephen.
Hell, you're so welcome.